Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Rhonda Farrell, the success strategist, bringing you week 40 of Spotlight on Success for 2024. Today, we're going to be talking about future sensing in a multi-speed world and how we need to stay ahead of disruption by understanding and responding to emerging trends. This is brought to you from a Bain and Company article called Future Sensing, the World of Tomorrow in Focus Today. I've expanded on it to address really what we've been speaking about in our series for business leaders and solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and executives across 2024. So first and foremost, if you're not familiar with the term future sensing, it is a proactive approach to strategy, and it's an interdisciplinary capability that helps businesses interpret signals across a range of emerging trends. So we want to, as we're looking and harnessing these approach, it's going to enable us to maximize opportunities, mitigate risks, and really understand that bullseye and interplay of technological, economic, and regulatory changes that impact not only our strategic planning, but our operational fielding as well. And so you see before you the 5 major trends transforming strategy in this area of us being able to future sense going forward to allow us to 10x, 25x, to bring the maximum amount of success that we can for our organizations, our ecosystems, our partners, our communities. So we'll be talking about these 5 areas in greater detail: technology and AI disruption, global shifts and post-globalization, regulatory and policy changes, capital flows and finance disruptions, as well as demographics and talent management. So why does this allow us to mitigate risk and maximize opportunities? Is because it enables us to secure the right forms of capital, right? So we want to ensure that we diversify and that our sources of funding are cost effective and regionally strategic. We also want to understand and walk in lockstep potentially with government, right? So engaging with our public sector stakeholders at the local and or state and or federal and international levels. We want to monitor key policy areas because they affect our ability to maximize opportunities, but we also need to minimize or mitigate risks. And we need to understand, most of all, the impact that those policy changes are going to have not only on our business, but our industry ecosystem, the market, and as well as domestic and global trade. And then we want to understand what's the state influence, right? So again, we have local, state, federal, global. We need to understand what's happening at the state level that's going to influence our business operations, our market competition, our ability to attract and retain talent. And really, not only that, but what's the incentives, right? What's the incentives in those areas in order to field products, services, stand up organizations, for profit or not profit, or academia or quasi-government, right? Depending on opportunity zones, hub zones, what type of organization you are, women-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned, service-disabled, et cetera, et cetera. However you're differentiating in the market, there's multiple grants and funding vehicles that also allows you to differentiate at the state's level, because you're able to harness funding streams that may be other people's money to allow you a runway of a long period of time to deliver value because it's on their redevelopment roadmap, right? So the first thing we want to do is understand the geography that you want to host your business within, to understand how have they carved that out into different types of zones, and what's the funding opportunities and the partnering opportunities and the marketing opportunities within that specific zone, right? So how many people are going to be investing? What's the rate of return that you could potentially get by harnessing and utilizing a special program like that? And then lastly, but not least, is again, the type of business entity you choose to field, right? And that's going to affect everything from how you ratio out your primary and secondary partners, et cetera, in order to capitalize on set-asides and states, local, federal, international budgets that are for a certain type of business. And then last but not least is really helping you hopefully build a future sensing capability, right? Because this is not a one and done type of thing. This is really hopefully enabling you and your organization to get this on your radar. We've talked about this from a strategic framework and an innovation roadmap for that. It's that intelligence, that's intelligence collection and application. Here, we're specifically focused on it from a future sensing and a broad industry, geographical, competitive trend kind of standpoint. So we want to monitor broad signals, right? We just named 3 of them, but we also want to harness and utilize and track the sources of where patents are being generated from, investments, and then labor market data, right? We know that some states, we want to look at their trend analysis for small business startup investment, retainment, growth, right? And then others are, again, in that patent and investment area. So if we can analyze those trend patterns and really understand, is there gradual changes that are unfolding over time and they're slow and predictable? Or is there some areas that are catalytically shifting, right, that disrupt markets and require immediate response? Or are they more viral, rapid changes that are driven by social dynamics or technological advancements, right? So we want to understand which trend, and it's likely that there's an aggregation of all of these in some way, shape, or form going on in your particular business segment that you're serving. So how do we wrap this up into a few bullet points to say what needs to be in our toolkit? And that's that future sensing allows you and your organization to spot trends early, right? Because what you really want to be doing is identifying disruptive patterns that are nascent or if future and going to hit you, and the implications of those on your business and your strategy. Then we want you to strategize proactively, right? So it's not enough to just have them on your horizon and know about them. You have to do an impact analysis, and then you need to take action on updating potentially your business strategy based on these new insights you've gained. And then, it's an opportunity to lead the market, right? So if you are proactively and or real time consuming, analyzing, adjusting your balanced portfolio of products and services and or your partnerships and or your geographies and or XYZ, it's going to help you lead the market. So we want you to stay ahead of the competition by understanding and responding to these emerging changes and challenges. So what does that let you be? It allows you to be future ready, because it's future sensing is not just a strategy, it is by its very nature a competitive necessity. So we need to interpret the signals of change before they become disruption so that you and your business can navigate the challenges and most of all seize the opportunities so that you can achieve exponential and sustainable success. So let's go into our first factor, and that's technology and AI disruption. Right? We've talked about AI and technology over the last couple of years, rapidly transforming every sector, right? So we've talked in prior sessions, but I want to foot stop here. Predictive analytics, automation, because we're reshaping how businesses operate, how they engage with customers, and how they streamline processes. So this disruption drives innovation and it drives efficiencies, but it also requires flexibility, agility, and investment so that you can adopt and integrate these technologies effectively. Additionally, it's going to require you to stay informed about not only ethical considerations, but policies and data privacy, regulations, laws, strategies, etc. Right? And these are headed to us internationally, federally, state level, and locally, right? So that's a lot to have on our radar, especially within this technology and AI area, because it's a multifaceted beast, if you will. So these are crucial as to understand and to stay ahead of, and even if your organization can help co-create or lend feedback on something locally or state level, right? There are many nonprofits focused on policy and governance as applied to a certain segment of government. If you have an interest and want to help shape the way forward, our advice is to understand what those nonprofits are doing and lend a hand, some thought leadership with regard to what you think is going to prove most beneficial to the organizations within your particular industry segment. And in that way, you're helping the whole as well as yourself be able to capitalize on these major trends. The next three are really, what do we need to be thinking about as we're looking at technology and AI disruption from this future sensing standpoint? And we want to be looking at automation and efficiency gains, adoption pace, and then ethics and compliance related aspects, right? So for our own organization, again, we can enhance operations, we can heighten customer service, and we can better our logistical capabilities. In the adoption area, really what we're looking at is we need to, in our own organizations or in the industry segments or with our partner base and our customers and our clients, evaluate readiness, right? Because it's not going to be the right time to adopt and implement full scale for each of those across the board, right? You may have to take a moment and really plot out who you have as partners, who you have as clients, who you have as customers, how you're approaching this particular area of your organization, because you probably will need to implement this in a phased manner depending on the readiness level of all of those strategic entities that you're working with. And you also need to ensure that your own organization has a smooth integration and that you're not disrupting core functions that are already working well. Last but not least in this area is data security, privacy, and AI governance with which to responsibly leverage technology. I know that in and of itself, we could probably hold multiple sessions, but hopefully from a future sensing standpoint, that gets you a good idea of the scope and scale of the things that you need to be thinking about, addressing, and really collecting intelligence and analyzing for utilization within your organization. The next area is global shifts and post-globalization. So we know that our world is evolving into a much more complex and fragmented landscape. We have geopolitical shifts, we have trade policy changes on an ongoing basis, we have regional alliances that are popping up, changing, morphing, closing down as they run their life cycle course. And so companies, our organizations, and you as leaders and executives need to reassess on a regular basis your global strategies, right? We also have to factor in supply chains, what's going on there at the local, state, federal, international levels, our trade agreements, and how these factor into our operations, our partnerships, and our markets. So key considerations in this area is regionalization and localization, right? So especially in our supply chain area post COVID-19, right? We want to ensure no single points of failure. We want to improve resiliencies. We may wish to reduce dependencies on global networks, et cetera, by localizing, but that's truly up to you and where your products and services are being built, integrated, or fielded to the global footprint you want to hold and the supply chain life cycle that you need to follow to make that aspect of your organization most efficient and effective. The next is market dynamics and geopolitics, right? We have so many things going on in our world today that are heightening our geopolitical tensions and policy changes that can enable or disrupt cross-border trade, tariffs, and market access. We've seen a lot of shifts going on in the last 4 years as the EU changes have occurred, COVID-19, as tariffs and trade agreements have morphed over time. So it behooves you to keep a strong pulse check on these areas that are changing dynamically as we move through, especially this election cycle. New opportunities. We want to identify emerging markets and regional shifts because those present new opportunities for our growth and expansion, both from a product and a services standpoint. Next, we need to be, again, we've touched upon these in the prior two, but really regulatory and policy changes deserve their own focus from an intelligence standpoint, because this is, again, it is so comprehensive, the impact that these can have across your organizational strategy and your operations writ large. So we need to understand how these things are shaping market dynamics. Are they being introduced or tightened, right, around the labor, worker protections, antitrust, tax, environmental, et cetera? Because this is one area where it really behooves our businesses and our entrepreneurs and our executives to proactively engage with our governments at each level so that we can better understand and in some cases shape the policy shifts that are occurring, and so that we can better align our operations to comply with this evolving regulatory environment. Key considerations, again, labor and workforce policies, market and competition rules, tax and environmental policies. First, because there's a constant legislative chain on wages, benefits, protections, compliance, and fair treatment of employees across multiple different spectrums, right? So that you see a huge focus on this, especially around the areas of DEIB, et cetera, morphing and changing and integrating, et cetera. And so we need to understand, how does that affect how we do business, and how do we really recruit, retain, grow, and ensure fair treatment of employees, contractors, other staff, partners, clients, and customers. Then we need to understand antitrust laws and how subsidiaries or state interventions can affect market competition and business practices. And then last but not least, we need to understand how corporate taxes and sustainability regulation changes can influence not only our business costs, but public perception with regard to the product and services suites that we're offering. So a lot to take into consideration just in those three areas, but two more for you that should round out our diamond with regard to future sensing and staying ahead of disruption. So the next is capital flows and finance disruptions, right? The financial landscape is shifting, not only from a what monetary basis do we use to run our businesses, pay for goods, pay or with our partnerships, etc. Right? That is changing. The data security and models are being revamped on a daily basis. The financial constructs that we're using and the compliance that's being applied to those are heightening, and the AI and analytics and intelligence systems that are going on to tracing monetary flows across geographies, etc., are being enhanced on a daily basis as well. So this is a huge area of that really brings together technology and AI, the global shifts and the regulatory and policy changes into kind of this financial markets spectrum. And so all of these are also have an interrelationship with interest rates, lending practices, capital sources, how we secure funding, where we secure funding, when, and how we build that business portfolio based on those, in some cases, new and enhanced funding models. We know that our competition for human capital is fierce, and so that we also need to understand what are we doing from a staffing perspective to make sure we have the right focus on ensuring our human capital can understand what's going on in the financial markets and can help bolster our regulatory compliance footprint going forward, right? So we need to have three areas for consideration. One is funding diversification. Second is cost management and investment decision-making models. And again, third is talent that helps us navigate this evolving business environment successfully. So we want to open the lens, right? When we're first starting out, we may be self-funding, seed funding, getting venture capital. But as we move, or private equity, right? It really depends on where you're at and where the next level of capital is going to come from to sustain and grow at the rate that you want. Is that a 2x, 5x, 10x, 25x? And where do you have to go in order to receive the financing available to enable you to move to that next level of growth and success? It's also about rising cost, localizing sources of either materials, resources, integrated modules, and or the actual workforce. So I think we see in this talent acquisition and development area, we're looking beyond traditional resumes and roles, and we're looking at a candidate's capabilities, right? Their whole skills, how we can harness them in many different areas of the organization, and their value that they bring, and their potential to navigate an evolving business environment, right? So I think it's moving from siloization on very very focused roles and responsibilities to perhaps cross-cutters where they can be harnessed in multiple areas of a business's environment to help drive efficiencies and optimization. And then last but not least, we as solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, business leaders, and executives need to understand where to best allocate our capital and reduce costs so that we build resiliency amid potential financial market fluctuations so that we can then understand how to operationalize our strategic portfolio in the best manner to reach those 2x, 5x, 10x, and 25x outcomes and goals we've set. Last but not least, again, we're going to expand upon this talent management area and demographics. So we see that the workforce demographics continue to shift, and businesses need to be prepared because skills, expectations, workforce dynamics, aging populations, diverse, multi-generational workforce up to 5+ different generations, if not more now, evolving career paths really enables or requires us to rethink talent strategies, focus on upskilling, and create inclusive and adaptable work environments. Because again, our organizations are going to be as successful as our people, as our processes, and as our technologies. And we want to make sure that we're optimizing in this people area as well as the other two. So what does that mean for us from a key considerations? Well, we need to be thinking about investing in training and development, because sometimes there's a skills gap that needs to be bridged. We need to prepare the workforce for emerging roles and technologies. We need to understand how we can apply different learning techniques, just in time, computer-based, immersive, third party, etc., drip system, right, that enables us to get key knowledge and skills in place to allow them to move forward on their career journey, and at the same time enable successful results and optimizations for our organization. So it needs to be part of our strategy, and it needs to be part of our annual planning, and it needs to be part of our investment portfolio to enable this leg on our triad to be most successful. We also need to be thinking about building a diverse workforce, right? Because sometimes we need to look at it through the lens of our customer demographics, and we need to look at it through the lens of how do we foster and heighten or maximize innovation. And really, we see this diverse and inclusive manner of integrating our staff, our consultants, our customers, our clients, and our partners is where we really can heighten our innovation across our balanced portfolio of products and services. And not only that, but help us adapt our business models more real time to harness opportunities as well. And then last but not least would be, how can we harness remote and hybrid work models that allows employees to meet their family and community needs while maintaining high levels of productivity and heightening our company culture? So each of these key trends really influence how our business operates today, but also how we need to be thinking about tomorrow. Future Sensing empowers leaders to anticipate shifts in these areas, make stronger data-driven decisions, and stay ahead in a world that's currently marked by intense disruption and uncertainty. By understanding and acting on these emerging signals, our businesses can confidently chart course towards sustainable growth and greater competitive advantage. Thank you for joining me and Global Innovation Strategies today for Future Sensing in a multi-speed world. We hope that you're able to chart the course amid disruption and uncertainty to reach your X Factor goals. Join us next week where we'll continue our journey on Spotlight on Success. Here we go.